Introduce Gary O'Neill. He has been a frequent speaker at Launchpad Job Club. His LinkedIn presentation adorns the homepage of our website. He is the smartest guy in the room. I'm sorry, everybody. And when it comes to how to find a job, recruiter Gary O'Neill. Give him a big hand.
Good morning. How's everyone? Good. I'm here today to talk to you about, it says on the top of here, by the way, does everybody have one of these handouts? If you don't, maybe you can raise your hand and I think somebody will get one. So I talk about a lot of different things here, and the feedback I often get, if you've been in any of my presentations, is that you got to drink from a fire hose, because I kind of cover a lot of material in a short period of time. So one thing that I often get feedback on is this particular topic that I often cover in about 5 minutes, which is the best way to apply for a job. Have you ever applied for a job and never heard anything back? Yeah, not all the time, right? And you do know, like, all hiring happens at the front of the line, right? Any of you have heard me speak before, that's kind of one of my standard things. All the activity happens at the front of the line. The front of the line is simply talking to the hiring manager. So when you apply for a job online, you apply at the front of the line or at the end of the line, right? Yeah, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. I want to share with you one of the reasons why you wait, and I'm going to share with you kind of what to do about it. So I'm going to give you a little bit of view into my world, if I can. Come on. All right. So what we're looking here is, I don't know if you've ever heard of an applicant tracking system or not, but they are tools that any company of any size has, and certainly recruiting teams like mine have, that we keep track of best we can of everything that's going on. So most corporate recruiters, I'm not a corporate recruiter, I'm a third-party recruiter, you might call me a headhunter, but my team does headhunting. But most corporate recruiters who I know are responsible for anywhere between 15 on the low end to as many as 30, 35, sometimes ridiculously 50 or more positions. And you got to figure what we're looking at right here in this applicant tracking system. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to show you a couple of these numbers because I want you to understand why I'm going to suggest some of the things I'm going to suggest. This particular role, which is filled, but I'm just showing you. See this number right there? Can you read that? It says web applicants 139, right? And those are the people who we never really even looked at or dispositioned. They're still sitting there in terms of applying for the job. Total decline, there's the number, 207 that we actually kind of went through. So you got lots of corporate recruiters who are managing dozens of jobs. And with respect to those dozens of jobs that are posted, you've got hundreds of people who applied. So if you had 150 people who applied times 20 jobs, how many people are we talking about? Yeah, right? Or 2,000 or 3,000. We can't keep up. Recruiters' jobs are really, really, really busy. And despite the fact that we would love to think that we had time to go through and evaluate everybody and the rest, it really doesn't happen. There's just no time in the day to do it. So, what I want to share with you is a little bit of a way to maybe do this applying for jobs a little bit differently. You guys good? Are you ready for that? Sound like a good idea? All right, cool. I want to share one more story with you before I do this, just as a motivational story. It wasn't all that long ago. We had a pretty simple position to fill. We don't post most of our jobs, by the way, because we don't work this way. Once we go out, we do networking through LinkedIn and other kinds of things, so we don't have to deal with this mass of people, because of those 139 who applied, the majority of them aren't in HR, despite the fact this is a senior HR position. So it's a waste of our time, so we post very few jobs. But we did post this one. It was a fairly straightforward position. It was a graphic designer. And we put the job up for whatever crazy reason, and within 2 days we had like 170 people apply, so we took it down. Right? Took it down. And what happened was, on the very first day, within the first half a day that it was open, we'd had about 30 or 35, 40 people apply, right there at the first part of the line. We go through that set. It's a pretty straightforward job. Identify about 10 people who were probably qualified, interested, available for that opportunity, reached out to them, found 3 who were really strong, presented them over their client, right? So the bulk of the rest of the people, we don't even have time to go look at. So the majority never even got looked at, right? And I'm not sitting here saying that I love that. As a human being, I kind of go, man, I know that the most qualified people were probably in this other set, but it takes time and costs money. So that's the reality of how this works. But there were 3 people, I'm surprised on this one, this rarely happens. There were 3 people who bothered to find out, because it was my company who posted the job, they looked me up. They found my email address, which is pretty easy to find, and they sent me an email message. And essentially said, hey, I'm a graphic designer here in Austin, Texas, whatever it is, and some spiel, doesn't matter to me what it was they said. All that I know is 3 people actually reached out to me directly. So most of the time, who hiring managers want to hire are people who are self-motivated, right? They'll do what it takes to get the job done. They're self-starters, and that's the same thing that I want. So, I mean, these people emailed me, so look and go, yeah, okay, cool, I reached back out to them. Those 3 people also got presented over to the client, and one of those 3 people is the one who got the job. So the moral in the story is there were probably another 120 or so people who were waiting in line and never heard anything back. Sorry. And people who bothered to reach out to me were the ones who moved forward. Does that make sense? Cool. So let me talk to you about how to do this a little bit differently. So, everybody's got this handout, right? I don't have a presentation up here. We're just going to walk through this handout so you have something useful to work off of. And I'm going to show you a few things on the screen. You all good with that?
Is there anybody who didn't get one?
All right. So step number 1, do a quick revise of your resume, right? And when I say quick, if you're spending hours on this, I'd say you didn't build your resume where it's fairly easy to tailor. Here's the deal. Your resume gets a quick scan, right? I mean, as my sourcers are moving through these systems, I'll show you, right? We move pretty quick. So I've got 139 people in this line. By the way, you do realize that most of the time as a recruiter, I'm not seeing the pretty word version of your resume, right? You know that, right? Probably not. I'm seeing this text version of your resume because it's faster. So this one actually converted to text pretty well. I would check it out. And depending upon what I thought, right, I can basically remove this person from the pipeline, move them forward in the pipeline, or move to the next person. So I can move through them. I'm looking at the top of this. You see that I only see the top part of somebody's resume right off the bat. And if I had 139 of these people to go through, our first pass would probably spend about 10 or 15 seconds on it as we move through this list, right? I know maybe that isn't comfortable, but I'm just sharing with you how the game is really played and what happens behind the scenes. The other thing that happens is that this system, as well as a lot of them, they will sort resumes and applications by keywords and such. They will. We don't use that because it just isn't all that effective, but a lot of recruiters and a lot of companies do. So how well your resume matches with the keywords that are in the job has something to do with where you appear in the list of people who applied for the job. And the way that it does it is kind of self-evident and straightforward, which is the job description for this job is in the system, and it's got words in it. And your resume is in the system, and it has words in it. And it does a rather utilitarian matching of words, right? And those with more word matches end up higher in the list. So it's probably worth your while for the jobs that you really think that you can solve those problems to do a quick revision of your resume. So here's what my suggestions are. Match your headline to the job title. Your resume does have a headline, right? Most of them don't, by the way. Most resumes that I see, at the very least, it'll say something like objective, or it'll say something like summary. Don't waste your time with that. Why not go ahead and say, I think it was your case, wasn't project manager? No, it was. You were in the semiconductor industry, right? Quality manager. So it would say something like quality manager and whatever it is. Put it up there in big bold letters right up at the top, so that when I open your resume right here, it would say quality manager and whatever it is. So if the job that was posted was for network engineer, then probably the headline on your resume probably ought to say network engineer. Now, if you're not a network engineer, don't apply for the job. But if you are, make sure that says network engineer, so right off the bat, I see that at the very top of your resume. We all good? All right. Next things is, it's pretty easy to identify keywords in the job description, right? Go through and identify some of the keywords. The is not a keyword, right? Keywords, key phrases. What our system does, I'll show you, I'll scroll down a little bit, is it pulls out what it thinks some of the key phrases are in the job, which is a little ridiculous sometimes. But here, I'll show you how this works. All right, so down here at the bottom, way down here, is it going to show me? It's not going to show me what it matches keywords, but see these stars? These are the places where it essentially went into the database and the people who were applied, looks at those keywords and key phrases and tries to match them up. And it gives them these stars. So it's going to skip all the standard words, but it's going to find things like project management or leader, whatever it is, right? So whatever those key action words and stuff are in the job description, it would behoove you to try to make sure that those are in your resume. Cool? All this stuff you already know though, right? This stuff you already know? Everybody knows that? Yeah? Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to skip on to the next part. So you got to do those things, but what I'm really here to talk to you about is how to do something different, which is, remember the story I told you about the graphic designers who bothered to reach out to me? That's what you got to do. How often have you ever applied for a job and bothered to reach out directly to the recruiter and directly to the hiring manager? Done a whole lot. Cool. Good. I'm glad you do. It can make a real difference. Right? I promise you, the people who reach out to me get my attention. The people who reach out to my team get my attention. The people who reach out to the hiring managers get the attention. And you can either politely stand in line like you're supposed to, or you can do what it takes to get to the front of the line. By the way, never forget that the characteristics that you're showing by politely reaching out, by doing what it takes to get to the front of the line, you're exhibiting the exact kinds of characteristics that most hiring managers want to hire, right? So as a recruiter who's awfully easy to find, and I'm associated with a lot of different jobs, how many people who are looking for opportunities do you think reach out to me per week through email or phone?
Not many.
Not many. Maybe one a week. Maybe one a week. 2 a week on a good week. How many times do you think somebody picks up the phone and calls me? Maybe once a month. Maybe once a month. And I will talk to them every single time. Every single time. Now, it might be a little bit different, maybe two, but it's not like hiring managers or recruiters or anybody else have a whole lot of people knocking down their doors. And as a recruiter, since my job is to ensure that my clients can hire great people, or corporate recruiters that their companies can hire great people, they're generally going to respond a little bit more to those people who are politely aggressive and reach out to them. All right, makes sense, doesn't it? All right, so you want me to show you how to do that? Yeah? All right, let me show you. So let's say, so my example is this one. There's a client here in town, they're a client of mine. It's a company called Ethica. Anybody ever heard of Ethica? Probably not. They provide fraud detection services for credit card transactions. They've been doubling in size the last few years. They just landed $45 million in funding. They're profitable even before that, but that's for growth and creation of new products. Their offices are in Toronto, somewhere in the UK, and here in Austin, Texas. So we're working to help them find a Salesforce administrator. Anybody a Salesforce administrator here? Too bad. All right, so we're working with them to find a Salesforce administrator. But let's say that you found this job online, right? Let's just say, what if we found it, right? And let's say we found it on Indeed. We got friends from Indeed in the house. I would still suggest that what you do is you come to whoever it is' website, you know who the company is, and then I clicked on the careers tab, and if I scroll down here, there it is, see Salesforce administrator. I'm going to view this job. There it is. And it tells you all about the job, it tells you about the company. Really cool company, by the way. Love that company, it's awesome. In any event, so now what you know is here's lots of keywords. You make sure that these keywords and stuff are in your application. You could certainly apply for this job right down here, right? And that's going to go to a lady who's in Toronto. Her name is Brittany Kruger. She's awesome. I like her a lot. She's not only responsible for, you saw that list of jobs that are scrolling by? She's not only responsible for those, but she's responsible for about that many more that aren't posted there, so she's a very, very busy person. All right, so you could certainly apply for that job, and then what I'd do is, item number 2, to get to the front of the line, you want to go to direct connect with the recruiters or somebody who's in HR, the hiring manager, and here's how you do it. I've got the steps here, I'm just going to show you right here online. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to LinkedIn. You can apply for that job if you want. By the way, there's a divergent point you can have right here. You can either apply for this job online and execute kind of one strategy I'm going to talk to you about. I probably wouldn't apply for the job at all. I would probably go direct to the recruiters and the hiring manager and skip this piece altogether, but it's a matter of whatever you're more comfortable with. I'm pretty aggressive, and so I'll show you kind of along the way. But here's what we'll do. Up here at the top in LinkedIn, there's an advanced button up here. Do you see it at the top right? Can you see that? Up at the top right, it says advanced. What you're going to do is click on the advanced search. I have a standard account. I do not have a premium account. Everything that I'm showing you, you can do. There's nothing that I'm doing that you can't do. So in my handout here, I say select people from the search bar near the top and click advanced. We just did that. Enter the company name and select current. So here's a company name field right down there. We're going to put in Ethica. Right? And under this company field, there's a drop down, current or past. I want somebody who's currently at Ethica. And then the next thing I want is, we probably want somebody who's a recruiter, right? Would be a nice choice. All right, I'm going to say recruiter. I'm going to say current. And I'm not sure what Brittany's title is. We'll see if she comes up in the search or not. No suggestion. So now what I'll do is I'm going to try HR. There we go. I got HR coordinator, PCP, right? And I know it's Brittany. I want to go find out what Brittany's title is. Let me try one other. She might be talent acquisition is another good choice. Let's say talent. HR, talent, recruiting. Oh, there she is. Right? So you try those things. Try recruiter, try talent, try HR. And in general, if there's a recruiter or a talent acquisition specialist, that's who you want to go to, because that's really their job to fill jobs. A lot of other people, HR people, it's not their job. Some are doing payroll, some are doing benefits, some are doing all kinds of other things. If there is someone who is recruiting, or if there's someone who's talent acquisition specialist, that's who you want to go to. So here's what we know. There's a Salesforce job that's posted on their website. You found it on Indeed. We know who the recruiter is, Brittany Kruger. We know that she's got at least 20 or 25 jobs open. I can tell you she's got about 50. We know that she's really busy. So those are the things that we know about Brittany. All right? So on this little handout it says, send a connection request to these people, so you know how to do that, right? So I go straight to Brittany's record. I'm already connected with Brittany. So I can send her a message, but if I wasn't connected with her, there's a little button that's called send a message, would say connect. And when I pop up connect, I would basically send her a message. Hi Brittany, I am a Salesforce administrator in Austin, Texas, doing a little bit of networking. Perhaps you'd like to connect. Best, Gary, and launch that message. What's the chance that Brittany Kruger is going to accept your connection request?
Good.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? This is a very difficult job to fill. It's been open since September. That's the reason why they're trying to hire me to do it. Yeah.
Okay, one time I watched you give a presentation and you pulled up the requests that for people to connect with you.
Uh-huh.
And you didn't read their message. You went, yes, 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 accept.
Oh, yeah.
All down there. So what if she's like that and she doesn't read the message? She doesn't know what you are.
Oh, in fact, good point. You can't assume that somebody reads your connection request. Hopefully I have one. I may have cleared them all. Where would it be? Up here at the top of the screen. I can't get it pulled over there. It's off the screen. Let me show you. If I'm lucky, I don't have a connection request yet. But normally what I do is up here at the top is where connection requests come in. I just go down and check. I just check the box. Check, 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 check. And I accept all the connection requests that come in. Lots of recruiters do that. So you don't assume that they read your connection request at all. A lot of the recruiters and a lot of the people you're going to send them to don't read whatever your message is. You still have to send one, right? All right. So what's going to happen is, once Brittany accepts your connection request, see right here under her picture, it says contact info. I click on contact info, and what do you know? Brittany.Kruger at Ethica.com. I now have her email address. In fact, I now have the email address for everybody who works at Ethica. Right? So if Bob Smith works at Ethica, what's Bob Smith's email address? All right, pretty simple stuff, right? So the next thing that I'd suggest you do, we're going to get to it, is we're going to execute an email campaign. But before I do that, the other thing I want to do is I want to search for the hiring manager. So I'm going to go back to my advanced search. My company is Ethica. If this is a Salesforce position, what would you think that I might type for the title of the hiring manager?
Salesforce.
Yeah, let's see if we got that. Or, you know what I could do is probably, it may not be in the title, I'm going to go up here to the keywords and just say Salesforce. So I want somebody who currently works at Ethica who has the keyword Salesforce in their interface. Interesting. So I got Interim Director of Sales, EMEA at Ethica.com. What's the chance that Stuart McIntosh is either the hiring manager or knows who the hiring manager is? Probably pretty good. I can tell you he's actually not the hiring manager in this particular case, but I promise you that he is the customer of the hiring manager. And I promise you that Stuart is chomping at the bit for this job to get filled. I promise you that Stuart is not real happy with his recruiting team right now. Right? And I promise you that if you reached out directly to Stuart, Stuart would love nothing more than to come down to the hall to Brittany's office and give me a call and say, hey, what the hell? Look, I've got to fill this job on my own. Fine. Let's see this Salesforce administrator in Austin, Texas reaching out to me. What? Right? What? You ever been a hiring manager before? How often, how many of you who have been a hiring manager were absolutely thrilled with your recruiting, your company's recruiting capability, and they delivered every single time, right when you needed them to? Does that ever happen? Nope. How many times if somebody reached out to you directly, was the person you were looking for, would you not only have wanted to engage with them, but you might have used that as the reason to go down the hall and beat someone else? What do you think? Anybody? Yeah. Nobody? For sure. Maybe you wouldn't have beaten them, but you know what I mean, right? All right. So my suggestion to you would be to reach out to Stuart McIntosh. You could connect with him. The connection request would say, hi, Stuart. I'm a Salesforce administrator in Austin, Texas, doing a little bit of networking. Perhaps you or someone you know might be interested in talking to me about how I solve Salesforce problems, and send him that connection request. What's Stuart's email address? Let's go double check. Every once in a while, they use different patterns. But, look at that. Stuart.McIntosh at Ethica.com. Let me show you who the real hiring manager is. And we'll see what his title is. Meister. Isn't that a cool last name? Lemeister? Manager, Business Applications at Ethica. And this is what happens with a lot of people's LinkedIn profile. He doesn't have any detail, right? He doesn't have any detail in his background. It doesn't say really anything about Salesforce, although it's way down here. Notice when I put in that as keywords, Salesforce, way down here when he was at Digby, which is the reason why I reached out to him about 2.5 years ago and placed him at Ethica. But it's far enough down that LinkedIn really didn't pick it up as one of the keywords because it's far enough past that it didn't think that it was relevant. All right, interesting stuff. Yes?
I noticed that you didn't put Austin as the area, as the location, you just put the company, even though the Austin location is kind of, is it better to put Austin?
I think the only time you would put on, I always start with a little bit broader. The truth of the matter is Ethica has about 175 employees. So what would happen is if I didn't put Austin and it came back with 50 answers, I'd probably narrow it down a little bit. But I normally start with just the name of the company, the title of the person you're looking for. If you get too many results, then you got to narrow it down a little bit. All right? Cool. So you guys with me? Now you know how to find these people and you know what their email address is. Do you know what their phone number is?
Find it.
Do you know what the phone number is? If you're connected to one, it might be here. Let's see, did Miles give me his phone number? No, he didn't give me his phone number, but if I went to Ethica.com, they got a phone number on there. If I say Google, and I ask Google what the phone number is, Google's going to give me their phone number. And when I call Ethica's main number, what's going to happen? It's going to say, hi, thanks for calling Ethica. For sales, press 1, because that's the most important thing. For customer service, press 2, right? At some point, it's going to say, for directory extensions, please press, what's the most common one? Does anybody know? 8, right? Please press 8. That's the most common one. And dial by last name, and I could dial by last name, and I could get to Brittany Kruger like that. All right. So here's what I'd suggest that you do next. And by the way, I wrote my interrupts enabled. So let's jump in here and actually thanks for jumping in. So here's what I suggest you do next. You can start a campaign. And I said email campaign, but if you're brave enough, you can pick up the phone too. If it were me, right, me, what I'd do is as soon as I saw that and as soon as I found Brittany, I'd call the phone number and I would call Brittany is what I would do. If you're not comfortable with that, cool, you got to do what you're comfortable with. But don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call them. I would imagine that Brittany has had 0 people reaching out to her this week, other than people she's already in communications with. She's had 0, would be my guess. And so you'll stand out just by calling her, especially if you're willing to spend a couple of nickels it takes to make a call in Canada.
If you were brave enough to pick up the phone, what would you say on that short phone call versus email? I know that it helps.
Sure. I'd probably say the same thing. So where I was going to go with that is that, I have it down here, example campaign message number 1. I'd say something pretty similar to this. Hi Brittany, my name's Gary O'Neill, and I didn't edit this so well, but I'd say I'm a Salesforce administrator in Austin, Texas. I'd probably cut the rest of this short. I would probably also say, and there's 2 different ways you can go here, right? One path would be, hey Brittany, I just saw out on Indeed a Salesforce administrator job that was open. I've applied for that job, but I wanted to reach out to you. I know that you're busy, you have a lot of things going on, and just wanted to know if you have a couple of minutes, right? Hi Brittany, my name's Gary O'Neill. I'm a Salesforce administrator here in Austin, Texas. See, you guys have a Salesforce administrator job out there. I don't want to be a bother. I know you're busy, but do you have a couple of minutes to chat? What's she going to say?
Absolutely.
She's going to say, yeah, I got a couple of minutes. Great. You might have a conversation with her, and she might say, well, I'll tell you what, could you send me your resume right now while we're chatting? Cool, let's talk about it. And it could be that you get a phone interview with Brittany Kruger right now. In fact, I'd be willing to bet you that if you reach Brittany Kruger, she would have a conversation with anyone here in Austin, Texas who's a Salesforce administrator right now. And if she hired them, then she'd say, what the hell, Gary? Why didn't you, I thought I was banking on you. I'd fill my own job. Right? So, S flows downhill, right? So. We all good? Does that answer your question? Yes. You're most likely to get their voicemail. And if you got her voicemail, I'd probably say, hi Brittany, my name is Gary O'Neill. I'm a Salesforce administrator here in Austin, Texas, doing a little bit of networking. I would certainly love the opportunity to chat with you about how I might be able to bring my sales skills and experience to bear at Ethica. My number is 512-814-5639. I'd say slower than that. And leave a message. Hey, by the way, just real quick, I see a number of hands. Just a real quick telephone voicemail etiquette thing. Leave your phone number at the beginning of the message and at the end of the message, so that when I didn't catch it and I listen to it again, I'll have to listen all the way through. Right? So when I say, hi, my name's Gary O'Neill. I'm Salesforce administrator in Austin, Texas. My number is 512-814-5639. Then I leave my message and leave it again. Thank you for doing that, so I don't have to listen to your whole message again. Yes, sir.
So you are interested in company, but you don't know if there is job posting. Why you apply and then because you're interested to work for that company, do you think that expertise?
Sure. Yeah, his question was, if you don't know that there's an opening, what would you do? And my answer is very much the same thing. In fact, I think I'm talking here again on the 29th, right? The 29th of January, and that's exactly the topic, which is, the truth of the matter is, how many jobs are going to be opened in January in the Austin, Texas area? Thousands, thousands, and thousands. How many of those that are going to be open in January does the hiring manager already know that they have a problem that they need to hire somebody?
Most of them.
Most of them, right? How many of them would respond to you if you reached out to them proactively and you were a reasonable fit for what it is they do and they solved the kinds of problems that they have, even if the job isn't open yet? How many of them would respond to you? Most of them. And the trick of the matter is, by the time a job is open and it's posted, then there's heavy competition, right? We saw what? Over 300 people for that senior HR job. Are you kidding me? So you do the same thing, you can just do it proactively. You clearly wouldn't say, I saw the job you're supposed to. You essentially reach out and say, hi, my name's Gary O'Neill, I'm a Salesforce administrator here in Austin, Texas, doing a little bit of networking, right? Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, what's your suggestion to communicate with the HR of the activities?
What was the first part of the question?
What's your suggestion about the communication with academic institution like university or
In
some,
the university?
yeah,
Hmm.
some department or some library hiring some, they are going to hire, and how do you like to communicate with them?
Kind of the same way. I mean, what I'll always want to do is using LinkedIn is the easiest way. Identify the people who have the problems that I solve, right? Try to find who the hiring manager is and always reach out to the hiring manager. And then always reach out to, if you're looking for a job, if they have recruiters, then you can certainly reach out to recruiters. If they don't have recruiters, then I'd go as high as I could in HR. Because now what's going to happen is if you went too high in HR, so if you reached out to Simone LeBlanc at Ethica, and if I reached out to Simone, she's the senior global vice president of HR at Ethica, which is a funny thing in a 175-person company. But if I reached out to Simone, Simone would basically forward me over to Brittany, and Brittany would get a message from Simone that said, hey, this person reached out to me. Now Brittany has to reach out to me at that point in time. Does that answer your question? Okay.
How would you change your technique if you're specifically looking for a state, county, municipal type job? I know they're built a little different than corporations. Any changes you make?
No, because what they're built of is people. And here's what I hear all the time about state jobs and government jobs. You guys aren't going to like this, but can I tell you something you're not going to like anyway? All right. So a few years ago, I worked for a company that does a lot of work with government organizations. And everybody wants to say that they work differently, right? You got to go through this long drawn-out process. Here's how it works. So we have a really good relationship with the people who run these data centers that we're part of. We have conversations with them. They can't really interview anybody who hadn't come through the process, but they can certainly have coffee with somebody who just happens to do the things that they need them to do. It's not an interview. It's just coffee, right? And once they have coffee with somebody and they really like them, all they got to do now is, it was magic, because now kind of when we got them into their system, they got interviewed and somehow magically got hired. So at the end of the day, it's still just people, right? Companies are make-believe, right? You guys know that. Companies don't exist. The only reason why companies exist is because we believe that they exist. They're not real, right? They're not real. The only thing that's real is the people who are inside of them. Reach out to people, forget companies. And everyone operates the same. Everyone wants somebody who's motivated, driven, confident, and or everybody wants to work with somebody who's going to solve the problems that they have and be dedicated at doing it. And by reaching out to people proactively, you're exhibiting the exact characteristics that people want to hire. Or you can apply for jobs online, you can stand at the end of the line, you can wait. Right? There's 123 people waiting to hear from us about that senior HR job that's already filled. All right. So let's see, getting back to this. So here's the deal. Email campaign, recruiters are really busy. The line of applicants can be so long. Hiring managers are rarely contacted, and most want to hire people who do what it takes to get the job done. Peers want the same thing. You can certainly reach out to peers sometimes. Every once in a while, a peer even has a motive called a referral bonus. So you can certainly find peers in companies and reach out to them too. Why not? If you found a Salesforce administrator over at Ethica, why not reach out to them too? And say, hey, Bob, I'm a Salesforce administrator here in Austin, Texas. I see you guys are bringing somebody on board. I'd love to have an opportunity to chat with you about how we might make that happen. What's the chance that if there was a Salesforce administrator, or Miles said Salesforce, and you found Miles and he's head of business applications, and he's the guy who's working 70 hours a week right now because they need to hire somebody, what's the chance that he would talk to you if you reached out to him? He'd say, thank goodness, and then what he'd do is he'd go to Brittany, and he'd say, Brittany, what the heck? I don't have my own candidate, right? And Brittany would come to me and say, what the hell? What's going on here, right? And in the meantime, Miles, who is the person who really needs to get hired, would go to his boss, the CIO, and say, hey, I found my own guy. Or gal, or whatever, right? Yeah. You see how this game is played? Yes.
Yeah, I just had a question. I notice a lot of times when I'll go through LinkedIn or I'll go through Indeed and things will get reposted.
Sure.
Or they've been up there and then it's like, they've closed and then they repost. And so you kind of have to wonder, they'll switch the hiring manager, or, the person posting it, or the person posting looks like they have nothing to do with the department. So you're just kind of wondering, and then, trust me, I'm going through and, trying to connect with everybody that
Right.
looks like they're associated.
Sure.
But, from the recruiting standpoint, how is that, it's closed, it opens, it's closed, it's open,
My only suggestion to you is the only thing you can really do is know that whatever assumptions you're making, they're probably wrong. So don't make any and just disregard that altogether. And, oh, I'm so sorry. Her question was, you see a job, it's posted, it's unposted, it's posted again, or it seems to be open for a long time. There seems to be some weird behavior with respect to some job posting. You go, why? Right? What's going on, right? Essentially?
it kind of looks like they're at a point where do they fill it and then you notice it pop back up later, or did they put it on hiatus and then decided to reopen it, or you just kind of wonder.
And all of those reasons are true. Let me give you a really good example of one right now. So Ethica, since we're talking about them, they are bringing on board 5 really high-level product managers, which is part of what they're doing with their $45 million. They want 3 of them here in Austin, Texas. I have 5 candidates in play right now. One of them got a job. I'm meeting them on Monday to help witness their contract, right? We got another candidate, Mary, who's probably going to get an offer in May. So they're basically bringing on 1 at a time for the next few months. So that job would have been posted for a while. They couldn't fill it, so they reached out to me to pay me lots of money to do that. They have it posted. I have it posted, right? They now hired Jane. Jane's going to start on the 5th. They'll take it down right now because they have other candidates that are in play. If they don't close Mary in January, at some point it's going to pop back up because they're hiring a series of people. So there's one example of that. So that's probably, and usually humans, we're funny animals, right? We fill in gaps in information with negative assumptions. How often would you assume, hey, they hired 1, they must be hiring a bunch of them, they're putting it up and down. Now, mostly what we think is, man, there's something evil going on behind the scenes, right? Sometimes there is something evil going on behind the scenes, if you know recruiters well.
So I guess going with negative assumptions, I know that there was an internal job that was posted at a company. It wasn't posted external, and I had a friend of mine help me apply for that internally, and then I see it posted externally after I applied internally. And then it seemed like the job description kind of changed a little bit, and I went to apply for that other one, but I was like, hey, this has the same job number code.
Yep.
What should I take from that, or?
Again, here's my, so his question was, did you all hear his question? So he's talking about applying for a job internally, and then it was posted externally, and then the job seemed to change, and all kinds of stuff. What should I do? My answer to you, it's funny, even inside of my company, people were coming and trying to make assumptions about something crazy going on with one of my clients. I've learned through the years, the only thing you can do is make no assumptions, because whatever you're assuming is wrong. And what you should do is the exact same thing anyway. So as long as you just remove all those assumptions, free yourself from the pain and suffering you create for yourself by wondering what's going on, and just execute the same strategy anyway, which is reach out to human beings, be a problem solver, and be that person who's politely aggressive to help them solve their problems. And that's kind of all you can do anyway. Right? Kind of all you can do anyway. Yes, sir.
Let's say you get through that first hurdle and you have at least a phone screen or maybe even a face-to-face interview, but then you never hear back. I'm going to take your advice of not assuming that negative thing. What should I be doing then?
Sure. It's actually, I think I can answer your question by going back to this. All right? Are we good on time? We doing all right?
Oh, yeah, you're great. And I have a question too, that before you go back to that.
Okay.
What, should you reach out to the recruiter and the hiring manager and the peer?
Oh, yeah. The question was, should you reach out to the recruiter and the hiring manager and the peer? The answer is, yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
Who gets the referral bonus?
It's not my problem as a candidate. I do.
Just a real quick question. I worked for a company, and just because they posted something internally, sometimes they can't hire an external until they post that externally. So keep going.
Yeah.
There's reasons for that.
Yeah, and sometimes you already know who it's going to be, and the post didn't really. There's every variation on the theme. So all you can do is kind of make no assumptions about it and run the play. Just run the play, run the play, run the play, and don't suffer with the weird things that your head tells you.
But just in a very small company, what about the big companies like Booking? One of That's a big company.
Sure. His question is, what do you do about big companies? And the answer is, the strategy I'm talking to you about is much more difficult to do in big companies. It really is. So at Google, reach out to 20 recruiters and reach out to 30 hiring managers, right? So it's still the same play. It doesn't work as well with large companies because large companies are like big marshmallows, right? And you like try to punch in there and they just swish all over the place. It's very hard to do. But, you know, the play could still work. The good news is that 80% of all jobs are not with those companies anyway, so the majority of places where you're going to work and ever have worked, and most of us have ever worked, aren't those places anyway. So despite the fact that those big companies, it's a little bit harder to run this play with, most jobs aren't there anyway.
Gary,
Yes?
I still have that question.
I know. All right. So here we go. So I'm going to skip this first bullet point, but I do want to come back to it. So once the person connects in LinkedIn, you generally have their contact info. Once you have their contact information, you have generally the email address for everybody inside of the company. Notice the email pattern. Launch your first message. The body of your email message should be your cover letter, and your cover letter is pretty standard, right? Your cover letter says something along the lines of, I am a blank and a blank with this thing that makes me unique. I help these kinds of companies solve these kinds of problems. Specific skills that I have include this one, and this one. Right? It's a generic kind of pattern there. So your body of your email message can be your cover letter, right? Certainly, if you're responding to a job post and you want to admit that you saw the job was posted, you could certainly attach your resume to it. And my suggestion in the body of your message is be human, be friendly. This is not real formal. Right? It's not real formal. These are not legal documents. Your resume is not your legal document. I suggest that you not put Mark F. Sands the third, right? You go by Mark Sands. Just put Mark Sands, right? Whatever you want to go by. Be friendly. And what you say, here's the deal. What you say is less important than that you said something, right? The message body isn't going to matter all that much. The example below is just one way. So let me take you through the series, and then Mike, I think this is where your answer starts, because following up on an interview, you'll do something similar to this, and I'll share with you a slightly different pattern on it for that, but it's very similar to this. So my first message to someone might be, my name is Gary O'Neill, I'm a certified Windows administrator, IT security specialist, because that was what was on the job that I saw posted, or something very similar to that, right? I help, and see this fill in the blank, solve these problems that listed from the job description. So when that job description listed a bunch of things that need to be done, imagine what the problems are and say, I help companies do this, this, and this, which are things that came out of the job description, right? I suspect you're busy, and I appreciate your time and consideration of me for Certified Windows Administrator. I've attached my resume for your convenience and applied for the job online through your company website. Okay? There's a first message for you. Can I give it a dot? Something like that. I'll read, we'll go through these others real quick, and I'll tell you a different pattern and kind of the one that I would actually use. I just find this one's more comfortable for most people. Yes, sir.
I have a question kind of bringing this up to cover letters.
Yep.
Would it be your opinion that the content of those typically don't matter, or is that a real opportunity to bring more specific examples in that might help sell your position?
I believe 90% of the time they're not going to matter and no one's going to pay any attention to them, but 10% of the time they might, so it's probably worth your effort to go ahead and do that, right? Probably. Make them short, sweet, to the point. And I think that in general you can have a cover letter that's fairly generic, and it's going to, it might just flesh out some of these things. Might just flesh out some of those things. I'm at this, I've solved these kinds of problems, specific examples include this one, and this one. Because all you really want to do in the cover letter is get them to really pay attention to your resume. That's really all it's about. All right, so here's the second message. And by the way, over here on this other side, I say launch the second message 4 days later, 5 days, somewhere in that neighborhood. Reply to the first message, right? And if you're using Yahoo, it's really weird. Why? If you send a message and you send a reply, somehow it replies to you. That's crazy. In Google Mail, if you reply to something you sent, it basically resends it to the same person, puts a little RE in front and leaves the same subject line, right? Which the subject line essentially is something along the lines of Salesforce Administrator in Austin, Texas, right? Job name and whatever it is, something like that, right? So it stands out. And so now there's going to be the little RE in front of it, which lets somebody know that this isn't the first message, this is like a second message, right, coming in. And on that second message coming in, I'd say something like this. Just following up from a message I sent last week about the Salesforce Administrator posted on the Ethica website. I know you're busy and I don't mean to be a bother. I am a Salesforce Administrator and a Business Applications Specialist. I solve these kinds of problems that I pulled from the job description. I'm networking to find a new career opportunity for the company to use my help. I'm hopeful you may know somebody who's interested in talking with me. Thank you for your time and consideration. That was my second message. My third message, launched the third message 4 to 6 days later, same sort of thing as a reply, and this is what's called the takeaway close, right? So here's the deal. Brittany's really, really busy. She's got a lot of things going on. She's not paying that much attention to the Salesforce opportunity because she thinks that I am, and I'm here at Launchpad instead. And so she's really busy. All kinds of stuff are coming in. She meant to get back to it. She's got a ton of inbound, all kinds of things going on. Your message, she kind of opened your first message and went, oh wow, I need to get back to this person. And then she got busy and she didn't because she went into 3 meetings after that when she was getting yelled at because whatever position wasn't open, right? And so your message is now buried way down and she forgot about it. The next time you send a message over 2 or 4 days later, it came in and Brittany's like going, oh yeah, I meant to get back to this person. Dang, I got to get to this meeting. All of a sudden it falls out of her visibility again. And then the third message is, I thought I'd reach out to you one last time about whatever it was. I know you're busy and appreciate that you have a lot on your plate. I remain interested in talking with you about the role and the dedicated work and do what it takes to get the job done. Thank you for your time and consideration, right? And what might happen with it, I thought I'd reach out to you about it this last time, is there's a good chance that Brittany's finally going to reply and say, I'm so sorry, I've been meaning to get back to you, Mike. And in that fleeting moment of time, you have the upper hand because she just apologized to you. So for one brief moment, you're in the catbird seat, right? Does that make sense? That last message is called the takeaway close. There's nothing about pulling yourself out and essentially saying, this is my last message and then cause any harm. Essentially what it's going to do is try to prompt someone who meant to get back to you before to finally follow up with you.
Do you have any kind of, or should we table this just because we're working with the holidays?
Probably, yeah, because people are going to be out of the office and stuff like that.
Would it be even better, maybe say, wait until after the new year, we'll go back to the office?
I probably wouldn't wait. I'd probably go ahead and launch something now, but, you know, actually between Christmas and New Year, there may not be too much going on, so, I don't know. Then again, I'm working next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Usually things are a little bit slow. They're not really slow for me right now. So you don't know all those assumptions that we have. You don't really know. But chances of your messages getting read the next couple of weeks might be a little less for the hiring managers in particular. And then when they come back, the pile's there and they're not going to pay much attention.
And if it's a decent sized company, they're probably, will have a return message or will be required, and you'll know either they got it or, hey, wait, I'll resend it again in January because I know they're on vacation.
Yes, got it. So, Mike, back to your question. Mike asked a question earlier, which is, so I went on an interview and I hadn't heard back, right, more or less, or what do I do? So, if you see me talk about this stuff much, what you're going to see is that I'm a lazy guy. Once I find a pattern that works, I kind of stick with the pattern. And so what you see me do following an interview is this, is that I would never suggest that you send a follow-up email message the same day that you had an interview, because you just lost an opportunity. Do you know what opportunity you just lost?
Remind them.
Yeah, to come back to top of mind. If I just interviewed you today at 2 o'clock, and at 3 o'clock you leave my office, and at 3:05 I get a message thanking you from your car. One, I'm kind of going, really? I mean, really? Really? It happened. Great. And you lost the opportunity to remind me on Monday that I talked to you. So I'd suggest that your first follow-up be that probably the day after your conversation with them. My suggestion in kind of the general follow-up, even on interviews, is, hey, Mike, just want to follow up. And instead of saying, you can certainly say thank you. And by the way, your notion of telling me that you're interested in the job doesn't make me want you more, right? Does your interest in the job make me want you more? No. In fact, you just gave away a little bit of your power. Needy is not pretty, by the way, right? Needy is not pretty. So really the focus is on your ability to solve the problems. Really enjoyed our conversations. After being able to talk about this, and this, You know, I'm really motivated and interested in solving those kinds of problems. I'll do what it takes to solve these. So, I mean, you're basically got an opportunity to sell, and there's nothing about saying I'm interested in the job that has anything to do with selling. In fact, your interest in the job just means that you just gave me the upper hand. Yeah, everybody's interested in this job. You're just like everybody else. Okay? So that's the first message. What I suggest you do too is when you're leaving the interview, is that if I was interviewing you, Mike, when I'm wrapping it up, I'd say, hey Mike, when should I expect to hear, you know, when we hear back from you, who will be hearing back? You know, when should I expect? And you'll tell me something lame, right? If you follow standard course. Well, we'll get back to you, whatever. Hey Mike, would it be okay if I haven't heard from anybody by next Thursday? Would it be all right if I follow up with you? Would it be all right? Yeah, sure, thank you. And what I did, by the way, is I got your business card at the beginning of the interview, right? So it gets a little weird at the end. I get your business card at the beginning of the interview. And then next Thursday, I now reach out to you, and I reach out to you and say, hey Mike, I'm following up with you. We interviewed last Friday. I'm following up with you like I promised, right? So I'm upholding a commitment that I just made to you. Hey, since the time we were talking about, you know, add some value. I've researched this, I've been thinking about this, we talked about that, and, you know, I actually add some value to that. And just say, you know, and I'd wrap up with, if I haven't heard anything from anyone within the next week or so, I'll let you know. Chances are I'm not going to go back from you, right? And so that's the pattern, where you just make a commitment to follow up. You follow up on your commitment that you just made, get their permission to do it, and always follow up with some kind of value add in those messages. And then finally, after, have you ever interviewed and you hadn't heard anything for weeks and weeks, right? And you have to worry about it, and you think about it, what happened? I suggest you use the takeaway close. And the takeaway close is, hi Mike, we interviewed about 3 weeks ago for that opportunity, whatever it is. You know, I'm going to assume that there's no longer interest. I just wanted to thank you for your time and the opportunity. You know, if there's anything that I can ever do to be of service to you, don't hesitate to ask. So I just pulled myself out. So it does a couple of things. One is, because I'm the one who shut the door, because I said, hey, thanks, we interviewed a few weeks ago, I'm assuming there's no longer interest, right? I shut the door and I don't have to think about that one anymore. Choo, we're done. Now, what happens if Mike happened to be interested in me and was just really, really busy? What happens? And what if there were actually 3 people in consideration, me and 2 others, and I basically just sent you a message and I just took myself out of consideration. I told you, hey, here's what's going on for me, right? Now what happens? Now what do you do? Let's say you were interested in hiring me and you're just working some internal process. What do you do?
Get back to you quickly.
You're getting back to me quickly. There's nothing about me taking myself out of consideration that would make me like you like me less, is there? And if there are 3 people in consideration, all things are equal, we're strange human beings. We want what we can't have, and psychologically, you're now going to want me more than you wanted me before, and I just got better than the other guys because the shiny object is leaving the room. Does that make sense? Yeah. The reason why I say that is the same sort of pattern. Hi, I'm just reaching out to you, doing a little bit of networking. Hey, I'm reaching out to you again. I know that you're really busy and all that, and I do appreciate your time. The third pattern is, I'm not going to bother you anymore. I'm withdrawing myself from consideration. You can't have me anymore. All right, that's the pattern. Yes, sir.
Do you really think that any follow-up after you change the chance would increase those chances?
There's no question that good follow-up after the interview significantly increases your chance. The way that I think about it is this. How many of you are technical-ish? And I don't know how many people use this anymore, but if you're all like from the like Unix world and stuff, what do you call an exclamation mark? Does anybody know?
Bang.
Bang. There you go. What do you call an asterisk? Star splat. Who said that? Yeah, it's a splat, right? Splat, right? And what do you call a question mark?
Dr. Who?
Question, right? Question. So my take on this, because I'm a technical guy, right, from way back, I still am, is that your interview either ends in most interviews end in a question. Most end in a question. Not really sure. Need to talk to some other people. Most of them end in a question. Every once in a while they end in a splat. If your interview ends in a splat, there's probably not much you can do about it. By the way, one of the easiest ways to splat is to be late. Here's what I know about being late. If I have a candidate who calls me and either after the fact tells me they were late or calls me 5 minutes after they're late and they're lost and they can't find it, here's what I know. I just wrote off that field. I just wrote it off, right? We're done. 98% of the time. So that's the way to splat, really easy. Be late. So you're either a splat, most of the time you're a question after the interview, and very rarely does the interview end with a bang. And what a bang means is, I had one just the other day, as a matter of fact, customer client feedback, and I'll sanitize it just a little bit. Their feedback to me on the phone when I called them and said, hey, what did you think about this person? And the hiring manager's response was, they're effing great, right? That was a bang, right? Woo! All right, rarely does that happen. The way you turn yourself from a question to a bang is through your follow-up. It's through your follow-up, because what people want is somebody who is a self-starter. They want somebody who does what it takes to get the job done. They want somebody who isn't interested in the job because that's needy. They want somebody. I want you to be the person who wants to help me. So if I'm the hiring manager, the more you can talk about the problem that I have to solve, the more you can talk about the fact that you're going to make me a hero, the more you're going to talk to me about how you'll work like a dog to get things done, the more interested I am going to be in working with you. So in your follow-up is not about, hey, well, I haven't heard back. Hey, I'm interested in the job. Your follow-up is, I've been thinking about our conversation a lot. Or, congratulations, I see this new news. I've done a little bit of research on this thing, and I thought you might be interested in. That thing we were talking about in the interview, I really considered that more, and here's some, right? More information turns you from a question into the person who they want to hire. Does that make sense? All right. What else? Does this make sense? How to apply for a job? So if I could, let me just do this quick summary, and I'll happily answer questions or talk about whatever else you want to talk about. But here's the deal about applying for a job. When you see a job that is posted online, if you apply for the job online, you're at the end of the line, and chances are you're probably way back in the line, and chances are, if it's a competitive job situation, odds are there's somebody else on the line who's more experienced and more qualified than you are. It's a highly competitive situation. The reason why I bring that up is come back and see me on January the 29th. I'll talk to you about how to get things going before there even is a line. But when you do see a job that's open and you can apply online, my suggestion to you is that you connect with a recruiter, you find the hiring manager, you reach out to those people, and you respect their time, and you send messages something like the ones I sent. It matters less what the content is than the fact that you're actually reaching out to those people. And I think I shared with you that I would do something a little bit different than this. This one is one that I think a pattern that most people are more comfortable with, which is pass on the job that was online, thank you for your time, here's my resume as a convenience to you. Me, what I would do is that, I play this game a lot. It's a psychology game. It's a psychology game, which is, I want to create serendipity in someone's life, right? I don't want to be a job seeker. I'm talking about a job that I saw online, I'm a job seeker, and just make myself a little bit like everybody else. So if it were me and I saw that Salesforce opportunity at Ethica, I wouldn't apply for it, and I wouldn't even tell them that I saw it online. What I would do is I would reach out to Brittany, and I would say, hey Brittany, I'm a Salesforce administrator in Austin, Texas, just doing a little bit of networking. I'm hopeful that you or someone you know might be interested in talking to me about how I solve these kinds of problems. I didn't mention the job at all. Because what is it about me mentioning that I saw a job posted online? What is it about me mentioning that would make Brittany want me more? Is there anything about me saying that I saw a job online that makes her want me more? No. In fact, it starts to make me look like a job seeker. It starts to make me look like everyone else. And I'm begging Brittany to say, well, did you apply online? Did you follow our rules? Right? Did you do that? If she's an in-the-box person, which she's not, but if she were, I'm begging her to force me to the end of the line, right? If I reach out and don't mention the job and just say, hey, I'm a Salesforce administrator, I'm doing these kinds of things, just doing a little bit of networking, serendipity might have just happened. The other thing happens is if I reach out to the hiring manager and say that I saw a job that was posted online, then the hiring manager, sometimes, again, I'm asking them to tell me to go apply for the job online. If I reach out to the hiring manager and just say, hey, I'm a Salesforce administrator here in Austin, Texas, doing a little bit of networking, perhaps you know somebody who'd like to talk to me about how I solve these kinds of problems, the hiring manager is more likely to engage with me than when I tell them I applied for the job online. Because if I tell them I applied for the job online, the hiring manager is going to go, okay, then Brittany's got it. So my strategy would be to not apply at all and to go direct to these people. But that's a little bit more aggressive, and if it makes you uncomfortable, there's absolutely nothing wrong with kind of going to this intermediate kind of level. Cool. There's a question? Sure. His question was, when I need to fill a job like this, what do I do to identify candidates? So my approach is probably a little bit different than a lot. What I would do is I go to LinkedIn, one of my primary tools, and our own internal database. I'll search for people who have Salesforce in their title, who are within 25 miles of my client's zip codes. If I get someone in the neighborhood of 80 to 100 people, I'll reach out to every single one of them. I don't open their profile at all, but what I know is that if they have Salesforce in their title, and they're somewhere in the region, if they're not the person I'm looking for, they're likely to know the person I'm looking for, and I send out messages to that entire set of people saying, hey, I'm doing a little bit of networking, and I've got a client that looks like this. I'm hopeful that you or someone you know might be interested in talking to me about solving these kinds of problems. So I'll launch messages out to 80 or 100 people. If it's a different role, like if it's a higher level role, VP level role, I'm working on, I got to bring in some board of directors members, that's much different. I mean, that's a very highly targeted search, and it's a very well crafted message, and I've got the thing that don't even have a conversation with me, I'm putting an envelope and FedExing them to tomorrow. So it kind of depends. But for most roles, it's a matter of just identifying some people and reaching out to them. All right, tell you what, can I take one last question? One last question.
I'm sorry. So I have a question. If I'm contacted by a recruiter like yourself, who is searching for a role, and they present my resume, they interview me, they present my resume to the company, I don't hear anything from them, or from the recruiter, and then the recruiter tells me, well, I didn't get anything back. Am I free to contact that company directly if I know, what their problems are and who the hiring manager is?
Sure. I mean, as long as it's become clear, my expectation of you, if I was working with you, is that one, is if I go dark on you, you're a free agent at that point in time. If I followed up with you and said, hey, here's exactly what's happening, and you're no longer going to be considered or what have you, chances are you're probably not going to be considered. But at that point, reaching out to somebody is, not that huge of a deal, right? You feel comfortable doing that, but it probably ought to be something that you're really, really a good fit for at that point. Sure. Right, probably ought to be. But as long as the recruiter's still engaged with you and stuff like that, you probably ought to work that angle. Because what I know is when somebody in-runs us, that not only that, it just looks bad. But once we're done,
Like you said, I haven't heard back. I'll let you know. So it's been 3 weeks. So
awesome. And so if I was working with you and I hadn't heard back, which happens, and you happen to hear back, let me know. Awesome. I'm so glad you heard back from them. Yay. Hey, thank you. All right, that's it. I got to wrap it up. Happy to answer questions after that. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.